Get to the chopper.
Welcome back to the Close But No Biscuit podcast. I'm Chris, and I'm joined by Robbie, and what we like to do is talk about movies. And we like to talk about movies that are quite good, but not perfect.
Movies, you might say, that are close, but don't quite get the biscuit.
Yes. And this week we're going to be talking about Predator 1 and 2.
Yes. I think Predator 2 is a better film.
So what is it that you don't like about Predator?
I wouldn't say necessarily I didn't like it. I felt it was it was narratively confused. I think the framing device was questionable. They start the film going like, we're a rescue squad, not assassins. And then immediately they go and absolutely blow 7 shades of shit out of a group of guerrillas. Okay, Arnie, you've said one thing, but now you've done completely the opposite thing. So on the one hand, it's like, yes, I'm all up for an action film where we gleefully blow 7 shades of shit out of guerrillas. However, to have tried to draw attention to the opposite of that 10 minutes before, like Arnie's like, yeah, he's a rescue mission only. He presumably only kills because he has to, not because he wants to, and then we launch into this absolutely astoundingly testosterone-fueled, fuck yeah, America, brutal. And it's not just, we shoot a few guys in the head quietly to get in. It's a full-on, he straps the explosives to the truck and then absolutely fucking annihilates the place. 6 men eliminate about 50 people and enjoy it. We idolise Arnie going, knock, knock, and stick around. But we sort of forget the context of that, which is he just, brutally eliminates a lot of people. And it's like, actually, are they any better than the Predator?
Arnie's squad are presented as the heroes, but arguably are doing very, very similar things. Yeah, exactly.
They're
the Predator itself.
Because it's kind of like they even like when they start, they're creeping through the forest, and they're like, oh, here's the crashed helicopter. Here's somebody did this. We've got our tracker saying here they went this way, and it's all very it's quite hush hush. But then when we get to that, we reach the guerrilla camp, and it just takes a 180-degree flip, and suddenly it's an action film. There's no tension or stealth. There's just out and out guns blazing, bombs everywhere, and I feel that kind of.
I think you're right. I think that if you read the script to me would suggest this is a survival horror movie that should be full of tension, because people, when they talk about it, they think of it as an action movie, but the story doesn't.
It doesn't have an action movie story. As I say, like Marnie goes knock knock, stick around. He's got these kind of very cheesy quips. The other line that we all hark back to, get to the chopper, that's not a quip. That's in the situation of the film, he's saying, get to the chopper. He's giving her an order, a last plea to just get out of here, get yourself to safety, I'll handle it, or whatever. I'll sacrifice myself to save you, random woman that I've rescued for no particular reason. Knock knock and stick around are genuine quips. They are comedy moments in the middle of this utterly gratuitous battle
which
scene,
doesn't fit,
which completely doesn't make any sense.
Because you're right, because this is deployed as a very serious movie. But as you say, that one bit in the beginning where everything just explodes and he's hitting out these one-liners, it really knocks the tone into a weird place where you're not quite sure. Do I take this seriously? How am I supposed to react? Because the opening bit of the movie and really everything after that sequence, I think, actually works fine. So I do agree that doesn't fit at all.
Leading up to that, there's also the element of their mate from the CIA, who's he's tricked them into taking this mission on because they're rescuers, not assassins, but he wants them to be assassins. But that's another thing that's kind of it's sort of dangled in there and then kind of lost in the noise.
The annoying thing about it is that I think the movie's strength is in its simplicity, and it's almost unnecessarily layering things on that don't really have to be there. It's enough that military mission goes awry because an alien interferes. That's enough. We don't need anything more.
I wonder if that's why everyone in hindsight, thinks Predator's a great film because what you remember is the simplicity of Arnie goes into a place, the Predator interferes, whereas actually when you watch it, you realise that there's all these nuances that don't work.
If you do look back at it, there is this kind of whole opening act that actually is incredibly forgettable because it's not relevant to what we eventually end up in.
Because what's relevant is the Predator picking off their team one by one, and they're like, oh, we've got to go through that valley, oh god, it's a dangerous place, we've got to escape the guerrillas, we've got to get back over the border, get to the chopper, and then there's an invisible thing flaying people and pulling them off into the bushes all the time. It's a survival horror film. And I do wonder if did they have a very tense script and they're like, this will never sell, we need to add, or we get Arnie in. Oh, the Predator was apparently originally going to be played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, so there was even more testosterone muscle nonsense supposed to be going on in there. Which they didn't do in the end.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that there's a lot of Arnie-ness in it, and I think obviously because Arnie was a major star, he's probably had a lot of stroke in terms of getting things put in there that maybe shouldn't have been put in there, like the quips and one-liners, because all that stuff is not in Predator 2. For the most part, and I think Predator 2 is a much darker. Again,
things like movie. You're on one ugly motherfucker. That's a line. It's funny, or it's something to heart. It's a pivotal line, but it makes sense in context. It's a thing in that situation a human being might utter.
Yes.
Because they're terrified out of their mind by this fucking giant alien in their face.
Whereas, if you're trying to, as you say, be this sneaky, stealthy rescue team, and then you're lobbing machetes at folk and hitting out with puns on the way round, you're going, this isn't, what is this?
Much as I love a good Arnie film, I think Arnie was not, they were all muscle men. They were not the team that fitted with the situation. I think they were just, they were miscast. I think they were...
Yes, I think they're not like the most kind of practically shaped people.
Like they had the one was it Billy the Tracker, who is like the only one who's actually made some effort to, speak a little bit, creep around and.
But the weird thing is, if you actually look at a lot of real life Marines, they're all really thin, wiry guys because that's the kind of build that you would want for a lot of what they do.
You don't spend your time punching people; you spend your time slogging through the jungle and keeping quiet.
Yeah, exactly. There's less of you to hit. Obviously in terms of athleticism, you want to be able to move quickly, which you can't do if you're the size of Jesse Ventura, who's legit 6'4" or 6'5", and at this time was built like a fucking brick shithouse. So probably stealthing through the jungle to snipe people, which is kind of what these guys should be doing. Yeah. You wouldn't maybe want a guy of that size.
You go in at night, you strangle a couple so they just go down quietly, you don't actually kill them. Make off with the VIP.
That's the other thing too. You look at it going the movie is just made instantly better if you set it at night. If you imagine they're sneaking through that jungle, but it's dark, instantly that's creepier and scarier, and the tension is ramping up.
But the alien is more... It's shown to be more powerful because it can hide in daylight. So there is that element of they're thinking, oh, everything's fine, we're going quietly, we're not sneaking all that, man, we can see where we're going. But then suddenly there's this thing that can just kill them out of nowhere. They can't see it, they can't shoot it, like that. So it's possibly misused and not directed that way. But that could still be a...
The way I'd look at it is, if it's at night, it's not immediately obvious it's using stealth because he might just be really sneaky.
Yeah.
There could be a cool moment where you see leaves and trees moving so they can visually go, it's fucking there. And then they get into a clearing and they all flip out their flashlights and there's nothing in the clearing. But there has to be something in the clearing, and it just stands perfectly still so the light bends around it. Something like that would have been cool. I just think for survival horror, and even logically, if you're a stealthy commando unit, you go in at night. You don't go in the fucking middle it's 11 o'clock in the morning, let's go and attack this race.
You follow the trail during the day and then you aim to reach the village at nightfall.
When everyone's asleep.
So you can,
it's 3 o'clock,
so you
4 o'clock in the morning.
Got it.
What do you make of the decision to see things from the Predator's point of view? because I remember thinking in the first time I watched it that was a really unusual choice. The audience is told what this thing is, and we have to wait for the characters to catch up with us. So we know, right, it's fucking invisible. We can see that now. And yeah, it's got this heat vision thing. So we're like fucking 6 steps ahead really early on. You could have had them working that out, and we work out at the same time as the characters. We're sat there going, it's heat. We can say it's heat. It's heat. Yeah. And then Arnie goes, oh, it's heat. And I'm like, yeah, we've been fucking saying this for like the last hour, you know. I don't like it when films do that. I think that, particularly in survival horror, the audience should be along for the ride with the characters, finding stuff out and coming to the conclusion and the solution at the same time.
We also get the scene where after if it bleeds we can kill it, then we see the shot of the Predator applying its whole med kit to itself. It's one of these weird sort of tonal inconsistencies. It's like we're not seeing the Predator as some space age dick. It's like it's just a bloke that like humanizes something, so it's not this, you know, terrifying super animal. It is just a creature that, you know, if it bleeds we can kill it, and we do, and it needs to, you know, it needs bandages sometimes, which makes it less threatening. I'm not sure how you feel about that, because I generally like things that annoy me about superhero films is they're just invincible. They don't take damage, they don't take hits, whereas you see this creature, it takes a hit and then responds to that taking of the hit by applying medicine when it's outside of shot. So I quite like that.
Yeah, I think like the fact that it can bleed, I don't think that's so bad. I think it's more just but then cutting away and showing it healing itself and going, this is, again, it demystifies it a bit, which I think that for survival horror to work, there has to be that.
The thing is, this thing, that's my thing is ultimately as a film, it's confused. It doesn't really know what genre it's playing for. Because as a fan of monsters in movies, I want to see the creature culture. I want to see the alien buildings. I want to see their stuff. I want to see them living their lives. I want to see them as animals, as other creatures, equivalent to humans, not as superior beings. Which I sort of get annoyed when they just deify things that are not human. It's like, well, no, it's born in this universe. It's an animal just like us. It's just a different animal from a different place. That's interesting. That's cool. I want to see it doing things, but yeah, as in this film, in this context, it probably hurts more than it helps.
I think that the tone of it, I think the music doesn't fit. It's very good music. It's very catchy.
It's just not.
But it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
The story we're telling here is a survival horror story. This doesn't fit.
Yeah.
Arnie's quips don't fit.
Having said that, I think the music fits better with the second one because it's less survival horror and more straight up action. There's less like passive acceptance on the part of the cast, and there's more like, yeah, we're gonna fuck this guy up. They don't know it's an alien until further on, but they're still like, we're going to take him. Yeah,
I agree with that. And the other thing too is that the kind of setup and payoff is a bit weird, because I say that the setup is the heat vision and the payoff is smearing in mud.
Yeah.
But the way in which that is set up, it's not really set up. It's just like we can see it because we've got POV view and the Predator as the audience.
Yeah.
So there's not really like a clever way that's established relatively early on to get the payoff.
If it was at night time and it still shot people at point blank range or whatever, it'd be like, well, that's fairly obvious. It can see in the dark. It must be infrared. You could, do that without needing to use dodgy camera filters that.
Well, you just have, like, again, pitch black, a guy's crawling along the ground. There's no way that the naked human eye could see him. The next thing, his big fucking boot on his back, Predator rips his fucking head off.
Yeah, rips his spine out.
And then Arnie is, I don't know, in comms with him or something, or he witnesses this and goes, there's no fucking way that he's got night vision. There's something to do with his vision. He can see something. And that happens. Maybe that's the first kill. And then we then get that.
How did the gorillas get her man so easily in the dark?
So Arnie, exactly. So they're all going like,
they must be wearing night vision goggles.
Yeah, there's no fucking way they can afford this kit. There's no way they've got night vision goggles.
Again, they do drop a little bit of that. They're like, these guys are awfully heavily armed for gorillas, and then they, so there's a Russian guy funding them or whatever. It's actually a Russian gambit. So it's like there is, you could use that to build up
distrust within the group. So Arnie's going, they have night vision, and then they all go, there's no fucking way these guys can have night vision. Who is attacking us? It can't be these guys, because they couldn't afford this level of kit. They're starting to always turn on each other. And then something then occurs where they figure out, oh, it's an alien. Oh, okay. And it's like planting and then payoff. Whereas I say in the version that you get, there's stuff that is there, but it's very lazy. It's really lazy.
It's quite haphazard. It's quite scattergun.
The only decent payoffs that I really like is actually the use of Long Tall Sally. That it's a feel-good thing at the beginning, and how that's then like flipped.
Then it's his mental
breakdown. I actually thought that's fucking great, and that's one of the bits that sticks out with me in the movie because it's quite emotional. There's this, it narratively works tonally, that it feels like this is what this movie should be about. It should be guys losing their fucking minds in the jungle because a goddamn alien is hunting them.
As opposed to Marines that think they're the whole cheese, and
they get humbled. They get fucking humbled, and they all start to freak out, which doesn't really happen.
No.
And like your kind of, I guess your sort of Native American character, it felt this was like there was some ideas here that didn't really go anywhere again. And that again felt like this should be like a payoff. Cannot be something where he says something or there's something to do with his culture that's then paralleled in the Predator,
and that's the thing,
or something.
The woman explains that the Predators have been before, so there must be there's some level of folklore surrounding these alien invisible hunters that come in the night. So it's not much of a stretch to imagine that some other cultures around the world have also experienced that, and therefore some of what he believes to be spiritualism actually has basis. In fact, it's the oldest plot trick in the book is to say it's actually a legend is real. Like bang.
Just that's like we add something in there. So it's like the woman that they rescue, she talks about this, they translate it, and then your Native American man goes,
I know that story.
But like word for word, but we call it this.
In my culture, it's something else.
It's a layering on something that's quite interesting and could be worked into a sequel if you wanted to do that. But that then gives him more of a function. I think I'd have preferred the idea of the camaraderie and then a breakdown of trust within the group. So they started, again, it's very survival horror in terms of tone. So at the beginning of the movie, they're all best mates. And then by like the second act, they're beginning to go like, can I trust these guys? Is someone fucking lying to me here? And then again, imagine the whole thing's in dark. It's all in the middle of the fucking night.
You can also imagine
that's
that
you've
got your alien hunter who is he's a galactic dickbag. He is here to tear shit up and have fun. So he stalks and he plays with his target. So you can imagine that sort of creature trying to prise apart the group, get the weakest, get them off one at a time. That's part of the challenge. That's part of the fun of the hunt. It's not just running in and killing everything. It's mentally destroying them and then picking the weakest off and then picking the weakest off until there's none left. Or you get the best one and then you have a hand-to-hand fisticuffs with the best one and then take his spine and fly off into the sunset.
So I think it's actually good, but none of it works.
I'm not actually sure it's good. I think I'm going to have to go out there and say that. I think there are individual good ideas, but I think as a whole, it just doesn't actually work.
It's a big spitboard of things that I like, but they're all in the wrong place.
I don't know. They're not connected.
It's like, because I like the music in it, but the music doesn't fit. I like Arnie and I like action sequences, but that's not what we need in this movie.
But that's not what this movie is. It's not what the narrative
so it's like it's for having all these things working together. It's like everything's working against itself. And actually, maybe if you do look at it in the cold light of day, actually maybe it isn't a good movie.
It's really not.
It's a big dumb action movie, but that's not what it should be.
But it's not even very good at it's not good at being a big dumb action movie, and it's not good at being a stealth horror movie.
It's halfway house. It's stuck in the
so I guess I can respect it for trying to genre bending is a thing, I'm all up for that, but I don't think it genre bends very well. I don't think it works.
I think we are agreeing though. The core premise is a good premise.
Yeah.
The idea of which has not been done before. It's an alien that hunts for sport like humans do, and we are now the sport.
Yeah.
That's an interesting, cool idea. And we're sort of thinking that you could do a remake of this or a reboot of it and make it that survival horror story that we're talking about.
But you wouldn't make a reboot or remake, you'd just make another Predator comes to visit. Because we've already established that there's many of them.
Just do it better.
Yeah.
Is the continuity of monsters more viable than the continuity of the human characters?
Yes. I've basically been, for many years now, struggling with the fact that I don't like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, even though I love expanded universes and I love the way when things fit together. That tickles my fancy. But then I hate the Marvel Universe because it's so tightly enmeshed that it's too tightly enmeshed, and I tried to reconcile what it is that doesn't work for me in that context but does work for me in other contexts with things like Star Wars and so on, and I believe it's continuity of setting and not continuity of specific individuals. Predator 2 is a different cast, it's a different Predator because we killed the first one, but it's an extrapolation of the context. It's a completely standalone film. Like you could not have watched the first one and you would still enjoy the second one, or you can watch the first one without having seen the second one. There's no pressure to have seen one or the other. I mean, they drop a line in Predator 2, which is 30 years ago in the jungle, blah 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 blah. But that you don't have to have seen the film to accept that line as yes, the army's seen these before, the end. And I think that's how you build genuine continuities of mythos, without that kind of constant pressure to have seen everything, which is so oppressive about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is so you literally cannot fathom a single film without having seen 16 others, because all the characters are so... It's too detailed. It's too close. Whereas if it's about alien, if it's a particular species of alien and a particular species of human, you can work through those where you can completely refresh, change the setting, change the characters, change everything, change even the type of film. Like we think Predator 1 should have been a survival horror. It wasn't really. Predator 2 much more action orientated, much more focus, or there's a bit of police procedural drama in there almost, so it's kind of there's a bit more investigation, different kind of. It's not just we're in the jungle being hunted, it's who is doing this, why are they doing this. There's a bit more, there's a different focus, and that works great because it's the monster that's continuous. If you put Arnie in that context, you'd be like, well, it's just another hoorah gun film because it's the same character, same situation. Whereas because we've completely flipped the cast, we've got completely different situation, different setting, different people doing different things with different motivations. I feel that I could have watched either one of those films in either order and it wouldn't have mattered.
I agree, but I disagree. I agree with you in that I actually am now of the opinion that the second Predator is better than the first. And that's probably a very unpopular opinion, but I think I'm going to agree with that. I believe it's a stronger start to the franchise. It's a better introduction of the monster.
Yeah.
How it establishes what the monster is, why it's here, all the reveal of that. The argument I have against it is I think it's a bad sequel. And the reason why I think it's a bad sequel is because the characters are having to play catch up, because we know what the monster is, we know why it's here, we know what its motives are, and until we really get to the third act, we are just waiting for these people to get on with solving the problem.
But again, that comes back to your original point of the predator's eye view. is that's again what spoils it, is that we as an audience are immediately told it's an alien, it's watching them, and it's a sequel, so we've come in with some preconceptions, and then it's the characters have to play catch up. But I think the build up and the way they do put the pieces together is a lot stronger, because there's none of that, like, the conspiracy of, like, it's actually Russians funding the guerrillas and then we sort of drop it and don't follow it. It's like the characters are immediately thinking it's a drugs battle, and then when they find the second gang murdered, Danny Glover's like, so there's a new player in town, and that's a perfectly reasonable deduction. Quite near the beginning, after they've busted open the building and found all the dead bodies, and Danny Glover's on the roof and he's got vertigo, and he turns around and he sees the shimmering air of the Predator and is looking at him, but he's like, no, I'm just seeing things. So we know he's clocked something, but it's not. I think that's I just quite like the way that all fits together. It's a human way.
There's also a payoff to it too, because in the beginning part of the movie he has vertigo, and I think his friend has to talk him down because he's like, "Fuck, get me off this roof," and then that guy dies. And then basically the thing is echoed, because in the climactic fight is a bit on the roof. Yeah. And he has to climb down the pipe and climb across. He's going like, I can do this. And the implication is basically now it's fucking personal, that his desire to kill this motherfucking Predator has overrode the fear. And there's a lot more well-earned plants and payoffs that occur in Predator 2 that are totally absent from Predator 1. The thing I will say about Predator 2 is actually some of the worst stuff in it is the echoes of the first movie. I don't like the opening, because the opening does that sweeping shot where we get the big fucking theme song, we get the thing over the jungle, and then we reveal LA, and I just feel like it's so kind of like, remember that first movie, and there's a lot of stuff that I just wish it was its own thing. It's taking the core idea of an alien hunting humans for sport, but just deploying it so much better. Yeah. And I just wish that it had just not even called itself Predator 2.
I called it Predator.
Or Predators, because there is more than one of them at the end,
but
we find out.
One
and they could maybe have had two in there, whatever you want to do, and just had it be its own thing and not be a sequel. Because I think you could then just discount the first. Because some people do it with Alien movies, that they just go, fuck the first movie. Like, you do not have to have seen the first Alien to get Aliens. Yes. What's clever about the way they do the callbacks in the second Alien movie is that it gets around the problem of the audience being far ahead of the characters, because the way they handle it in Aliens is that only Ripley is ahead of the game, but because she is with us in the audience, Ripley is the cart, she's the roller coaster cart, and we're with her, and she's going, this is a bad fucking idea, don't fuck with these things, and we all know that too. And then so we're ahead of the game, but it's the frustration of the other characters refusing to be ahead of the game with us. So that works. Whereas in the Predator movies, what it is let down by sometimes is the fact that the audience is ahead of the game, and there's nobody on screen to be ahead of the game with us, and we are just waiting around for it. And this is why I would argue that if you want to look at Predator 2 and it has to be a sequel, so now we're not in the realms of discussing it as a standalone movie, that's when I think that big Gary Busey speech, and when he says it's a fucking alien, has to happen earlier. Because I think that if the audience know it's a fucking alien, if you've seen the first movie, the thing is that Danny Glover is retreading the first movie.
The first movie,
in a different setting.
Open, like the very first scene is that space shot of a spaceship, and then a little pod drops off and goes into the atmosphere, and then it goes into the hoorah army setup. So there is actually even without they immediately say it's definitely an alien.
The thing actually
is Predator 2, they do the heat vision of a city and stuff, but they don't actually say it's definitely an alien.
Because it could in theory be
a human
with
night
heat vision
goggles
or whatever,
which did exist in the 90s.
Exactly. So I mean, to be fair, I just want to say, like, The Thing is like one of my favourite movies ever, like probably top 2. And the only part of the movie I would change is just to cut the flying saucer going into the Earth's atmosphere at the beginning, because it does that, and then the title comes up. and then the opening shot is the dog with the helicopter chasing it. But the dog with the helicopter chasing and shooting at the dog is so much more compelling, and it's so much more compelling if you don't know why they're shooting at the fucking dog. Whereas because I've seen the fucking flying saucer at the start, I'm like, well, the dog's a fucking alien, isn't he? That's, you know, it's you've just sucked out what should be like a real, why are they doing this? To the point where I know too much, and it's a real strong belief that I've got in terms of filmmaking and narrative, that the audience have to be in the movie. They can't be ahead of the characters in the movie.
Yeah.
They have to. Those two things have to work together. Particularly in this genre, which Predator 2 does do, because as much as it's an action movie, it is a bit of a crime drama.
Yeah.
And there's investigation going on here. There's detective work.
So yeah, with the audience already know who did it and why they did it.
Exactly, which is annoying, because if you, again, it comes back to the argument of just don't call it Predator 2, call it Predators and make it a standalone movie. Because if you saw this one first, it's way better. But the problem is that if you don't watch it first and you have all these answers, all the detective stuff is for naught.
I don't know, but it still works as a kind of almost like a race. So we know who's doing what and why, but it's like, can the humans work it out in time?
The Gary Busey stuff, I think, is problematic, and it's problematic for a number of reasons. In terms of the narrative, it's problematic because we then find out that although we've been hanging out with Danny Glover for the whole movie, there was these other guys that knew what we already know, and that, I think, is clunky. It works, though, if the feds don't know it's an alien. And then Danny Glover is smarter than the feds, and the feds realise in the third act, oh shit, it's a fucking alien. And then we go to our climax. But if you're going like, everyone knows about this shit, and we know they've been coming here for years, we then have to change the whole opening of the movie. And it's why I come back to the idea of we're on the wrong roller coaster car. The Danny Glover roller coaster car is great because Danny Glover's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But the problem is that with the knowledge of the first movie, the way...
I think Danny Glover's story arc, his character...
is great.
His progress is much better than Arnie's just goes in, goes out, the end.
Hands down. I totally agree with it.
Danny Glover's, he's much more... he's a guy in a situation who's uniquely qualified to deal with this threat because he's a bit mental. If you could remove the feds from that film and it would not suffer. Danny Glover chases the Predator to the slaughterhouse. You could have that scene without the feds. You could have him in the cold, and then instead of the Predator, having to sweep its color vision to find the right color to see the bad guys. This is an apex predator with ridiculous technology, and like we have night vision goggles so that we can augment our vision and therefore see infrared. Of course, the alien that can only see in infrared is going to invent goggles that it can see in not infrared. Like it's duh. Yeah. it's something sort of really basic. Like, of course, the feds are going to get slammed because the aliens are not that stupid. Like, they wouldn't be that stupid. They can't traverse space without first having learned to see color.
When I was saying before about how the worst stuff in the movie is overlaps from the first that don't have to be there, the heat vision doesn't have to be there. Because if you think about it, the heat vision is only relevant because of the slaughterhouse scene with the feds. If we take the feds out of the movie... in terms of how Danny Glover...
Because he never has to deal with it.
The invisibility thing is a factor, so that has to be present. But in terms of how Danny Glover eliminates Danny just kicks its fucking ass.
Speaking in terms of continuity, what I find quite interesting about that final scene where there's all the predators in the ship, and there's more of them, they're all wearing different clothes and they have different weapons. So you can surmise that each predator is an individual hunter with its own individual style. So you could do the first film as a predator that uses night vision, and the second film is just a different predator that doesn't. And Los Angeles is really fucking hot. So the heat vision would be...
not ineffective, but it'd be much less effective.
So rather than these like nice blues and yellows and reds, it would just be solid red and solid yellow.
And someone even fucking says it in the opening bit. Someone goes like, "It's 105 out today," or something.
Like half the film, like Danny Glover has sweat streaming down his face for most of the film. It looks hot.
Yes, like again, it's a crowbarred in thing because we have to do it. It's like, oh, it's an alien movie, therefore we gotta have a chest burster, even though maybe this alien movie there's no reason to do it, but we have to do it. And I think that's I think the Predator 2 is a strong movie, let down by the fact that it's a sequel. All the stuff that doesn't work, like the feds knowing about the alien because the first movie, the heat vision because the first movie, all this stuff fucking sucks. The idea that there is an alien creature that is hunting people in Los Angeles, and Danny Glover is a detective, and he assumes, oh, this is a drug gang situation, and it takes a twist.
Follow our money.
It's
follow the money.
Good fucking movie, great idea, and just unfortunately kind of ruined by being a part 2. And it's annoying because when I watched it back, I was sat there going, there's no way this is going to be better than Predator 1. Then I watched it, it is actually better. It's the
even
the core idea done.
It is still way more coherent, more cohesive, more focused. It follows, one thing follows from another, give or take these, callbacks to the first film. It broadly makes sense. It builds up, it pays off. It gives you those. It doesn't just dangle and drop plot threads here and there for shits and giggles. It follows through.
If someone had asked me how would you approach Predator 2 if Predator 2 did not exist, let's do it, I would probably have gone something along the lines of, well, what are we going to have to do here? We're going to have an emotional story, and we're going to have to expand the universe. So let's do something that maybe Dutch, who was Arnie's character, let's see he had a best mate who was a different team, or a brother, or a son, or something that can connect emotionally to the first movie. So that character has a motivation. So he maybe either is already in the army or Marines, or joins it, and he wants to find out. You know how, like, what Bryan Cranston's character was like in Godzilla, who became like obsessed with finding out what this thing they were hiding was? Something like that. Because I think that Danny Glover's character it's very compelling, but he doesn't really develop. The closest we get to it is the vertical rooftop thing. But what I'm saying is, I don't think that's enough in order for something really to work in the way that, like, Terminator 2 really fucking works, because it's just non-stop cool, but there's actually a real heart to all of it as well. So we're not shying away from the violence, we're not shying away from any of the cool stuff, but actually when he goes into the lava at the end, does the thumbs up, we all feel very sad. And it's that type of emotional stuff that I think this is what that franchise needs. It needs to expand and move forward, whereas what it's doing at the moment, and it's always done, is keeping very one-note character or two-dimensional characters, and we're just going sideways. We're not really progressing the narrative. We're not progressing who the Predators are. We never really find that much out about them. And none of the lead characters actually develop in any sort of meaningful way. Like, Danny Glover starts the movie being a bit of a mental guy that can fight, and ends the movie essentially being a bit of a mental guy that can fight. There's no development in terms of what he does. That's what I'm trying to get to in terms of why it never got a part 3. That's fucking why.
I don't. Character development is not everything to me. I'm there for the monster. The classic Godzilla films from the 1960s, 70s. It was all Godzilla versus somebody, Godzilla versus the next. They're not direct. They're not billed as sequels. Even though they are, they follow a broad continuity which wobbles quite a bit, but they work as individual films, and most of them treat the world as like, yes, we know that monsters exist, and they've got their air raid sirens go off when monsters appear, but they still work as standalone films. I think that's what I'm interested in.
Let's argue this one. So let's say we do the exact same movie, Predator 2, but we eliminate the fact that the feds know about it.
we eliminate the feds.
So we eliminate the feds. Okay, so
we say nobody believed Arnie, and we eliminate the feds.
So the opening shot is just LA. There's no music, there's no Predator theme, there's none of that fucking heat vision, none of that shit.
Yeah.
And it just comes up, Predators. And then we go into the story. There's no feds. The idea is basically the whole thing's been internalized to LA. It's been a police matter. Obviously, the government kind of get wind of some pretty crazy shit going down in LA. They then put two and two together and go, oh, fuck, it's damn aliens again. And then instead of the police turning up at the end to pick up Danny Glover,
the Men in Black turn up.
The Men in Black turn up.
Yeah.
And it's not like the feds. It's like an actual Black Hawk Men in Black type group, because that's what it should be. And then you have, in my estimation, a fucking at least 8 out of 10 movie. If you had to write it, would you have brought back Arnie's character? Because I wouldn't have.
The second film with Arnie could have been a revenge plot. Like, he's now really fucking pissed at these aliens. He killed his best buds. His team, he was obviously close to his team. They had that camaraderie. You could have done something with Arnie, leads up the space predator, anti-predator task force, whatever, to take the fight to them, and done something in that vein. Or Arnie dies of radiation sickness like 3 weeks later, and it gets buried because it was a weird one-off jungle. Or they imply that this particular predator may well have been there several years before. So now that he's dead, maybe nobody goes to the South American jungle anymore. So there's no more flayings and no more weirdness, and they just forget about it. Because Predator 2, they say 30 years later. So, and if these predators, they're flying around space, presumably, like, if we tie it to the alien universe, then they're flying around space in cryosleep of some description, which means, one predator individual could have attacked Earth, could have visited Earth on safari 20 times over the course of 500 years, because he's been gallivanting around other safari resorts.
Yeah, he just really loves it. He just loves Earth. He just can't get enough of killing people on Earth.
But maybe it's like, every 2 years of his time, he's like, oh, it's time for my yearly trip to Earth. But he's been on reserve, all different reserves around the universe. But it's because it's cryostasis. It's the same individual who's just been like, I'm just gonna go and relax and murder some innocent civilians for shits and giggles on this Earth place.
You could do this. I think one of the things that's interesting is that, particularly the time period of it being like after the humans have become spacefaring.
If we say that Alien and Predator are the same canon, where are they in the Alien films?
We won't bring up Prometheus. Fuck that timeline.
No, that doesn't happen.
That timeline. Doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But yes. And that's, I think, in terms of escalation.
Which suggests that either the predators are not as widespread as we think they are, and they only have a few select reserve worlds that they fuck up every now and again, or their civilization has fallen.
So what would you have done with a Predator 3 then?
Predator 2 ends with that, oh, you'll get your chance.
Yeah. Which
is pretty much, we're going to have predators on Earth again. I suppose you would take it to AVP. And then just say, like, here's bring those same feds back, and say, or they have morphed into Wayland Corporation.
It's a shared universe, because you've already done it with the fucking skull, so you might as well go all in. Like, just go like, no, that's what the fuck we're doing now.
I think I have to say that trophy cabinet is such a, it's one of these beautiful bits of lore dropping. I just think it's such a fantastic, subtle, simple way of saying this universe is so much bigger than this, but without any obligation or forcefulness. It's not like a Marvel Cinematic Universe cameo where it's like, oh, look at me and my plot and my film and my nudge nudge wink wink. It's just, here's a thing in the background, notice it or don't, fine.
Even things like
on the surface level, it's a set of skulls and he's a trophy collector. On a deeper level, isn't that an alien?
And what are these other aliens?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's the thing with the big thing with the jaws? And you're like,
It's making the thing that I like is that narrative should all be tied up with a bow, but I like when movies make me ask questions.
Yeah.
And make me think of possibilities for what could happen next.
Like we cover up the main narrative is that we kill the individual predator who's been fucking up Danny Glover's.
But even the gun, like the bit where the predator throws him the gun, and we reveal the date, and like that again, it's not going, and here's your part 3, but it is making the audience think. So it's beautiful because it works. It works on so many levels because the cabinet speaks to the future, but the gun speaks to the past, and it's basically going like, By the way, we could do. This is a fucking fountain of creativity. You know, because it's going like, in part 3, we could go back to the Wild West, we can go to the fucking future, we can go to outer space. This concept is limitless in terms of what we can do.
Well, it's also a threat. It's like, well, you know, we fucked you up before, we'll fuck you up again.
And that's where I think the next logical step that I think makes sense is that the predators are dealing with humans for the first time when they're spacefaring. And I think that's interesting.
That changes the dynamic.
Exactly. So it's like, now the predators might think, could they become a threat to us? And that, to me, is the next logical step.
Also would play into the idea that if the predator civilization it's in decline, because by the colonial marines or by alien and aliens, they're just nowhere to be seen in the universe, or at least they're so rare that nobody's spotted them. So actually, so the predators are presumably at this point going like, humans are not really cattle anymore. We can't just nuke them every now and again.
To me, that's a really interesting idea. It's that idea of something that you've just assumed for years is kind of like subservient to you. Is now, oh shit, they're now on that level. What the fuck did we do here?
But it's also, I also love the thing about Alien versus Predator does is that it gives Wayland Corporation a reason to hunt the aliens. So in Alien, there's that mystery of why did the computer tell us to stop and get a sample back, and why is the android so intent on getting a sample back? And it's because they already knew. And Alien versus Predator gives you that setup of like, they knew about predators and aliens, so they were watching for frequencies and signals from these creatures because they'd recorded them before, because they knew, they had experience of them, and then it blossoms into that beautiful big wide universe. And the universe, the galaxy is a big fucking place. You could, send refineries to far-flung stars for years and never meet them, but then you just put a little thing in each computer system, just a little listener, and eventually one comes up, and that's your... and it gives you that kind of the sort of the cosmic indifference angle of the universe is a big uncaring place full of nasty creatures, but also if you travel round the stars enough, you will hit something eventually, and they do.
There's AVP, and then there is the later Alien movies, and what we would be writing now is the movie for Predator that fits in between that, to explain their absence in the Alien movies, and how is that all dealt with and works. The idea of the humans becoming spacefaring and becoming no longer cattle, it's a brilliant way to put it. That's what I would have done with a sequel, and it's not what they have done with a sequel. The sequels they've always done have been retreads, and they have never actually taken the step of going, what would the Predators think about us? And I think it's a wonderful opportunity to then show you the Predator culture beyond the hunting. Because presumably back on their planet, they might be going, whoa, okay, hunter guys. Because you fucking pissed them. Oh, maybe it is. Maybe these are outlaws. That's the thing, because you don't know.
I like the idea of them being sort of like effectively decadent blue bloods that are the last of they're last of the riche. Of the noble classes that are gallivanting around the universe, and
but the idea though
the society is that's not okay anymore.
Exactly, because they've now, maybe for the first time ever in their history, the humans are the first species to fight back.
Or successfully
fight back, and therefore on their planet they're going like, hey guys, do you want to kind of cut back on the hunting of that species in particular because you pissed them off now? And it's almost like the Predators kind of kicked the beehive, so all the bees come after them.
I think the idea of the Predators as like a caste-based system, like where they have these blue-blooded noble hunters, but then there's a whole other society of people who basically serfs, drones, workers who live on Predator home, building all that technology, building all that stuff, and it's basically in service to these fucking dickholes. And maybe there's an uprising or something, and you get this, but you don't have humans to tell that story. And that's probably the ultimate flaw in the box office, is that you can't make a movie solely with aliens, much as I would love to.
So we're now talking, what would our sequel be to Alien versus Predator, I think is what we're saying. So rather than doing Predator 3, we've kind of concluded that your next stop on the road probably is to do AVP.
So I think my conclusion is that, we don't, there's no direct sequels here, in as much as it's not the specific story of some specific incident continued 3 times. It is a franchise where there are independent films that flow and work together as a sequence, but you don't have to have seen any one of them to appreciate the individual element. So, like Godzilla flows through thousands of films without any human continuity at all, or very rare human continuity. So the Predators as a species would be the focus.
We're completely discounting Prometheus. Fuck all that shit. That can get to fuck. Alien 3 and 4 don't exist. Prometheus does not exist. We're dealing with Alien 1 and 2 are in canon, Predator 1 and 2 are in canon, and AVP is in canon.
Yep.
Fuck everything else.
Yep.
So from that building block, we've got a solid foundation to build on there.
Yeah, we've got crossover, we've got scope, we've got dangly bits of what the Predators do, we've got the space jockeys and all these other weird things that could happen. It's got a big universe, but also we know it's so big that sometimes we just don't encounter things very often.
In terms of character development, the Predators are what you have to develop because they have potential to be developed. Alien, I always thought as a kid, and still maintain, that it's scarier when it's simply a product of the universe.
Yeah,
it evolved naturally
creature
on some sort of planet, in the same way that sharks developed in the sea, tarantulas developed on Earth. Fucking scary things that can damn well kill you, and it wasn't some created thing. So in the same way that you can't reason with a shark and you can't reason with a tarantula, they're just there and they're going to fuck you up.
I was having to think recently about how you would create an alien. Like, what planet would give birth to a creature with a horrendous life cycle of the alien? And what I came up with was basically a planet that's on an incredibly elliptical orbit around the sun. So it's got this period where it's really close to the sun and everything dies. So that's when the aliens go into the egg phase. Then it's got quite a wide orbit, or quite a long period where it's, warm but not too warm, and then gets slowly colder, where life blooms and the aliens come up, and basically the first other creature that finds an alien egg sets off the chain. They murder everything over the course of maybe like 5 or 6 years, not very long. Then it gets too far from the sun and it's freezing and everything goes into hibernation again. And then it gets closer to the sun, you get really awkward life cycle where the aliens are like these things that they come out of the ground, they obliterate, because like you see in Aliens, 20 civilians causes 20 aliens and they're fucking huge killing machines. But you can imagine something that grows so fast and is so vicious, it dies fast too. So you've got this really short, sharp life cycle based on leaving eggs, dormant eggs. Yeah.
You've literally written a better origin than Prometheus, just in like a few seconds with that. Yeah.
Basically creates some so I mean, there's probably some flaws in that I.
Well, the way it's
enough hand waves. I think we could carry
the
it.
next thing that I would look at with it would be that in order for it to get to that state, there has to be evolution. This is where survival of the fittest comes in. And this is where things get really interesting with the aliens, because the other thing would be that it can't be the only creature on the planet.
Yeah.
And that's when suddenly, in Predator 2, when you have the case of all the different skulls, this is when it gets interesting, because we are like the alpha predator on planet Earth. Humans are, we are the top of the food chain. That would be the same thing with whatever planet. The alien was from.
Yeah, the xenomorph hell
yeah.
world that it comes from, it's the top predator.
For it to have gotten as advanced as it has to be up against relatively stiff competition. I do like the idea that whatever the facehugger attaches to creates a slightly different variant. I like that idea.
Oh, that would even work, as in the sense that the alien's competition is its own species. So so the thing is, if you've got species like if a generation is like really short-lived, the more generations you have, the more evolution selection process. The more generations of children, the more chance you have for things to change. Which means you would get fat, so they would converge on this super arms race type situation where they're constantly vying with themselves, with each other, with the other monsters in this world, and then you end up in this sort of ridiculous, utterly ridiculous creature that is so powerful, but its weakness is that it's short-lived. And it obliterates ecosystems, but then when there's no food left, it just dies because there's nothing to eat. So creatures like these would not get space flight, so there has to be something which visits, maybe just once, because all these things are so virulent. They're from an ecosystem where they explode in population and then they die. So when you take things like rhododendrons, they grow up in the Alps or whatever, and the air's thin up there, so they don't grow very well. You put them in the normal level and they fucking spread like wildfire. They take over. So you put an invasive species from a brutal ecosystem into a relatively soft ecosystem, it would, these are creatures that would wipe out planets. You put those aliens in the wrong place and they would just spread like wildfire. They would destroy everything. They would take until every animal that could host a facehugger had been eaten and face-hugged. That would be it. No, but it could be like if the predators were the ones who first.
The predators in fact, they're the only motherfuckers crazy enough to have seen this thing and thought, let's hunt it.
Well, and also,
that's how it gets off the
Alien
planet.
versus Predator has precedent for that. The pyramid is deliberately built to breed aliens for their hunting amusement on. I mean, we have these. If we have the one pyramid beneath the Arctic on Earth, they imply that there have been more pyramids in the past, and that's why lots of Mesoamerican civilizations just have disappeared after certain points in time.
The other thing that's key about this, though, is
the predators are the ones who carried them off. They didn't get infected, they deliberately carried them off to places and put them down.
Now, the next thing that this comes into that is that has to be a reflection on a certain type of predator, which gives a bit of an indication of how the class structure works in this society. Because obviously, in terms of the hunters, presumably the ones that are hunting the xenomorph are like the fucking best hunter, because we've established that the xenomorph is the ultimate killing machine in the universe, and yet these guys are going, I'll fucking have a pop at them. In fact, I'll take on an army of them. Then the next thing is, how do we explain predator society? How does that work? Why do they hunt? Why do these particular hunters go after this killing machine?
Human civilizations that like hunting. We have them in Britain. They're cunts, and they go fox hunting.
Yeah, and I think that's but it's interesting.
This is like the idea of alien civilizations reflecting our own fears and prejudices, but just writ large in a different form to try and make social commentary. It's just you take them as these are the predators that are flying around the universe are the ones that are. They're the noblemen. They're the kings and queens and princes who are just utterly out of touch with their own underclasses. So maybe fair enough.
That's what you're saying. So creatively, you want to deploy the idea, which I agree with, is that they are the intergalactic equivalent of Tory fox hunters.
Yeah. And then on Predator Homeworld or multiple Predator Homeworlds, they've got a spacefaring civilization, but they've got like the scientists, the builders, the serfs, effectively, are enthralled to these, not necessarily willingly, but you have this rigid caste structure that they can't break out. Maybe humans are the catalyst that allow them to overthrow the fucking dickheads putting aliens on every planet. And that, you know, that could be, you know.
Well, that's where you have that would be a really interesting idea. So you have this underclass that are like, for fuck's sake, do not put xenomorphs anywhere. Leave them the fuck alone.
And you can also use that to explain the inevitable downfall of the predator civilization between AVP and aliens. Is that if xenomorphs were taken home? And I think they got loose. They failed to hunt them. They nuked them, but they didn't nuke them hard enough. And then we find the predator homeworld as basically a husk, and all the ones that are left are these gallivanting dickhead hunters. So
the problem we're in is that this all sounds great. The difficulty is how do we get humans involved?
Yeah,
and it's like, because it does feel like the mid-step movie is a predator. It's a predator movie that happens to feature aliens. But how you crowbar a human storyline into that, because I think you're right, that the narrative that flows well is this idea that there are these arsehole upper class predators that like to hunt and basically fuck their own civilization by bringing back the one thing you do not want on your planet.
It's like
ever.
You might be the best hunter in the universe, but your underclass serfs are scientists and builders and engineers. They are not.
They all get fucking owned by the xenomorph, and of course it breeds like fucking wildfire, and that's it. We're all fucked.
Yeah,
and that's a good idea, but then how do you bring a human component into that?
So you work some kind of situation in where a group of humans sufficiently impresses a particularly nice group of predators such that they end up taking them with them, or they take them in cages as to be released somewhere else. There's precedent for predators basically hairing off with humans.
They can be reasoned with.
Yes, exactly. They are intelligent. They can communicate. And in fact, at the end of Predator 2, he says, "Take it in English." Like, they can speak. They can. Some of them at least have, the vocal cords such that they can speak English. So we can communicate with them. Even if we can't understand them, they can understand us, and they can communicate with us. So them in the dominant position, you can get humans from any time in between. You can imagine something like you could have in the early days of spacefaring humans, you could have a colony that just, they just upload. They're just like, what are these fucking idiots doing on this airless moon? You just take them off, cart them off to their jungle world, and then fuck about with them, or something. Because abduction seems to be in the MO of predators.
Now we're connecting dots here, because you then have that underclass that would be the ones of like, whoa, hang on, but the humans are now spacefaring, and they've beaten us a few times. Maybe we want to ease back. Like, let's stop this before it gets out of hand. And that kind of fits with them bringing back the xenomorph, though.
One of the engineers, serfs, whatever, or some lower caste's predator gets to interact with a human. And the lower caste serf thinks, we're just carting in animals, but then catches them talking. And it's like, well, wait a minute, we're not just hunting animals here, these are sentient creatures. And then you bring in that whole argument of what's the line between an animal and a human, what's okay to... What does hunting mean to a society?
Then you extrapolate the idea you just said there, like he says, take it in English. How did they learn English?
Yeah. Because they've been coming to Earth for fucking donkeys.
But then the implication might be then that you're kind of underclass.
Yeah.
They can understand the humans.
But the thing is, I think the idea is that it would be that the Tory blue bloods can speak English. They've learned the human language to fuck with us, and they don't care. Whereas the underclasses, or the serfs, effectively are like they don't understand English, but they understand that these creatures in the cages are talking. They're communicating. They're not just animals. They're not just things to be hunted for sport. They are effectively the same as them, and you can have that kind of alien. You get all your first contact type tropes can come right rolling back out again. You've got your how do you communicate with a species that's completely different from you? How do you reach an understanding with another sentient creature.
So maybe we're talking like it's almost like a 2-film step. So the first film is kind of like Planet of the Apes, but with predators. And then your second film is one with the xenomorphs, but we're planting setups for xenomorphs. But I like that idea. I like that a lot. The idea that this hunter class fucking everyone else over, the humans and the underclass predators, and there's an uprising.
Because then you get classic tropes of class warfare and stuff, but it's through alien social commentary and all the rest of it, all that emotional bullshit that you love so much. The underclass predators overthrowing the overclass predators, and maybe that's the catalyst for the aliens getting free. Is this upsetting of the social order in this very rigid society?
There's some kind of like Colosseum-like situation with aliens that are kept underground to do battle with predators, and then they get out.
On Earth. It's like we have this big arena which is designed for the upper class toffs to have fun in, but then it's very carefully controlled. It's like there's a nuke if everything goes wrong, but then when the humans basically become the spanner in the works that upset this equilibrium of this class system, which is clearly oppressive and bad. And the video game Unreal basically does this. There's the Scourge warriors, who are these big hulking. They're very inspired by the Predator. They have the big wrist claws, and they shoot little bolts, and they're the fuck off warrior guys, but they're clearly not like able. They don't do manual labor. But then there's these other guys, there's these Scourge soldiers who carry normal weapons. They don't have funny claws. They just have hands. They're slightly different shape. They have slightly different faces. So you've got this kind of idea of a caste system where there's the warriors who are the sort of the elite, or they're the upper class. They're the big guys, and then you've got the soldiers, the foot soldiers, and then presumably below the foot soldiers you have other engineers, workers, drones, and it even fits with like the alien hierarchy. You've got the queen, and then her workers, her soldiers. So you can have like that. That's a trope that's established in this universe. Is that
I think that's
there are castes.
What ties it all together is James Cameron's movie, because it's the injection of militarism into it is actually what ties everything together. Because there's rank structure, there's order. It's all setting up for a big fucking fight. It's a battle. Like the logical conclusion of all three, when you put them together, they're militaristic movies at their core. Humans are a militaristic species. Our history is absolutely fucking caked in war, bloodshed, and fighting. I'm not particularly proud of it, but that is the facts. So, like, and that's again where you get these really interesting the parallels between the societies. Like, we're just saying there, like, we're calling them these predators, the upper class predators, like Tory fox hunting bastards, because those things exist within humanity. So they're a reflection of that.
This is like, if the underclasses have been suspicious for the last 100-odd years, but this is when the humans finally talk back and try to reason with the guards. That's when,
and this is where
one particular, the same as any war films where the sympathetic German suddenly turns. Like you can just have elements like that where it's just, this is the tipping point. That's the catalyst, the moment when something changes.
And what we're talking about here, and what this is about, is then when you're asking about this emotional stuff that I like so much, this is where we get to. So we've talked about all the practicalities, we've worked out all the logic. This is then you'd introduce that underclass predator that the audience love. And he buddies up with a human.
He's got a different shape of face or something that just differentiates him physically. So we've got this implicit racism as well. It's like these are the drones, and these are the toffs, and
and there's a connection between toff, but and the kind of catalyst for really what everything that occurs is there's some kind of bond between this young predator and a human. Basically, there's going to be like a soldier, presumably, because that's who they would abduct, and that's the audience's cart on the roller coaster. And basically, the audience are this person, and they meet this predator, and we really like this predator, and they get on, and there's chemistry there. And I think that's the key, is that having the audience taking a shine to this predator who then likes our species, and a revolution of some sort takes place. And from there, I mean, I don't really know how we're not going to go so far as to literally map this whole fucking movie out. But I mean, I think that seems like a fairly easy thing to map out. I mean, basically, it's been done a million times in different genres. It's a revolution. It's a revolution movie set on the Predator homeworld with humans in it, and that's
with a possibly downer ending of the end of civilization.
Well, the downer ending, I think it has to be subtle. I think the mistake would be like the aliens get out and then we cut to black. I think it's going to be something along the lines of the Colosseum burns and some facefuckers run away.
Even that's like the little where the eggs just go and they cut open.
Yeah.
The narrative ending is that here's the hope of the proles. We've caused the revolution. We've overthrown these bastard nobles, and then the alien eggs.
What if one of the Tory Toff arsehole predators that love blowing themselves up when they lose? It's a real thing. What if that's
an honor thing, so that still works.
But what if it would be so that their uprising occurs, we get our big, I don't know, heroic shot of like humans alongside the predators on a hilltop looking over the new world,
the king predator,
and then some bitter fucking bastard
just
opens up the eggs and goes, if I'm gonna die, fuck yous. Which again, it fits because both 1 and 2, when the Predator gets his ass kicked, it's just like, get that fucking suicide bomb ready and I'll nuke everyone. It's a proper middle finger type situation. That's what they would do. And that's a good fucking ending.
You put humans on an alien world, ultimately, they're not getting home. Like, they've been abducted.
Totally.
This isn't humans have flown here and, we're going to get back to the Sulaco and cruise off into the distance.
Well, narratively, they can't.
Yeah.
Because the story we're telling here has to occur in isolation of the Predator homeworld for it to fit within the Alien franchise. So basically, all this stuff has to be done and dusted by the time we get to Alien 1.
So actually, it makes the most sense that, the revolution is a success. There are like 15,000 Predator Toff nukes going off all over this world because the Toffs have been we have our let's say our Colosseum is our focal point of the revolution, but we zoom out to the planet's surface of all these fires raging and nukes going off, and then in the debris the aliens are free, and then we don't even need to have another film after that. You just let the implication do the rest. Aliens got free.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff as well we'd be doing here, the implication would be that there's multiple Colosseums. It's not just one. Like, this happens to be the one where it all kicks off, but the idea would be like on every... in every continent
even
within...
if there's not multiple Colosseums, there's still, like, there's these underclass predators who are in thrall across this planet. It's a society that's... Yeah.
Well, I think what we're going, it's like the nukes are going off, but I like the idea as well. These alien eggs are dotted around the Predator world, and it's not one central focal point.
But it only takes one queen, and they are we've established that they are super virulent. They multiply like fuck. So it's the thing. It only takes one egg and one queen to basically fuck over an entire planet.
And then the movie afterwards has to be AVP2 on the Predator.
No, I was saying you don't need a movie afterwards.
It depends what we're trying to achieve. If we're trying to achieve how we can get AVP to fit within the Alien timeline and work logically, that's a brilliant way to do it.
Yeah.
If we're trying to get a movie where we can give the audience that Alien versus Predator with Colonial Marines type situation.
If you could do the Alien versus Predator versus Colonial Marines can come at any point after that. Aliens... Sometime after that, somebody comes across that Predator homeworld. They're having a civil war, a constant civil. Like they've been warring for fucking forever because it's the underclasses versus the surviving toffs, whatever. And then you have aliens come into that, humans that are now exploring the universe. So you could similar jumping off point to Alien. A human computer catches a signal of the fallout of a predator thing doing a thing, and then You could have that same situation of like, here's some random refinery jockeys investigating a fucking civil war between predators, which is probably a bit too much. But you know, you can still like a marine colonial marine patrol catches a thing, and you can have a fucking orbital warship doing the same situation. You can.
There's a thing we have to think about though. So in Alien 1 and 2, so that's the future of this timeline. Two things on this. One, is it problematic that although they don't mention them, that they know about predators? One, is that problematic? And two, is this a really good justification for the existence of colonial marines? So when fucking Hudson, I think it is, when he says, is it just another bug hunt?
So we know that there are aliens, but not xenomorphs and not predators. So
even on like
intelligent life is the...
So even like the colonial marines themselves are privy to certain species, but maybe this species it's a need to know basis, and they didn't need to know.
So in like Predator 1 and 2 and AVP, they're very localized and they're covered up, so nobody knows, or the knowledge does not escape. And then we say this hypothetical film in between where the Predator homeworld the Predator civilization is destroyed. That's by humans that were abducted, and therefore the knowledge does not escape back to humanity. So by the time Alien and Aliens happen, the Predator civilization has disintegrated, and there are a few dicks probably still roving around, and there may be some sub-satellite colonies, but Predator civilization is basically gone, so nobody encounters them. But Weyland-Yutani, they've got their scanners out. Every computer says, well, look out for alien signals and look out for... or anything that's not human, basically. So they know that there's intelligent life out there, but they've not told anyone, because why would they? Or because they want to lock on the technology. They want it for themselves. And then, whether it's the grunts from the army, or it's working class people, or it's mercs and random pirates in between, nobody really knows. And maybe you can still play on like rumors, fears, but
I like that. Like it's almost kind of like rumors and myths are dotted around. I like that
remember
idea
that
a lot.
ship that disappeared around there, and it's like they thought they saw a thing that wasn't human.
The sort of the old sailor stories about sea monsters. Like I love all that. So having that idea of the space equivalent of like these kind of rumors and legends that have started to dot around and between these different ships.
We found this ship, and everyone was every crew member had their skin missing, and they were strung up in the cabin. Have humans basically operating in a bubble, thinking, "Oh yeah, there's aliens. There's a few bugs on a few planets, but it's nothing. We're alone in the universe, basically."
What if Weyland-Yutani ship detects, planet here? They go over and look at it, and maybe they're thinking, because the planet's in such a state of devastation, this might be like ideal scavenging time. Because like they're so weakened.
Well, the thing is, like, even if like the Predator if this is the Predator homeworld and it's been a spacefaring civilization,
it's like our one chance to go to the Predator homeworld and actually get in, investigate, and get out and survive.
Even
right?
if it had been nuked to oblivion, like there would be remnants of things. It's been nuked a lot, but there's still a goldmine of technology. It looks dormant, but because aliens have been there are eggs everywhere. So you've got these colonial marines going down going, this place looks fairly quiet. And then the human marines are like, let's explore this old ancient broken building, and the predators are like, fucking stop it. But then they kill all the predators because they're Mad Max predators and they've got colonial marine guns. And then they set off the chain of the next wave of alien infestation.
I love that. That's good.
The humans come in and shatter this fragile balance of power, and they go underground. They trip over some alien eggs, and boof, it's over. Predators are like, fuck off, stop invading it. You fuck this. We were just getting our shit together.
That's fucking awesome, because you have this one story where like the humans turn up, we buddy up with the underclass predators, we think we're doing the right thing by having this big revolution, but actually ultimately it fucks everything up because of the alien. The xenomorph gets out, And then second time round, the Predators have started to rebuild. We're not involved, and they're at the point where maybe they can begin to get their planet back. And we turn up again, and this time it's almost the opposite. They're right off the bat, we just fuck everything up again.
Yeah.
So like that's
the bad humans this time. So
but this then lends itself really well towards that whole alien predator colonial marine battle, because that would not work within the Uprising storyline, because the predators have to work with the humans in that, or at least the underclass ones do. But to get to that three-way dance that I want to try and get to give the fanboys of that's what they want, this narratively makes sense. The predators now have reason to fucking hate us. That's when it turns into your kind of three-way thing. I don't even know where the fuck that goes from there. I don't even know what the fucking narrative beyond that even is, apart from a big fucking fight. I think that the ending you want to have is an explanation of why the Predators aren't in the main Alien movies, but having the implication that there's still a few of them out there, and they're back to being hunters, because what they conclude by the ending of all this is it's better to be the hunter rather than the hunted. And it's basically, don't trust us. The humans are actually weirdly the bad guys. They're like, well, it was better when we were hunting them because you weren't coming here fucking up our planet, the arseholes. And that becomes their whole drive.
But it's also, it's like, although the humans come and fuck things up, it's like, it's ultimately the toffs that left the alien eggs around that really fucked it up. So you could still cut it both ways.
Yeah, but it would be... It's a kind of payoff to the audience. It could be. I can see an ending where like the predators becoming the predators again. So the ending would have
or
to...
the underclass becoming the toffs.
But that'd be a cool moment, like the idea of like somehow they beat the aliens and the humans, and then you get the big iconic Predator theme comes back on.
Puts one of the masks on and
then walks off into the fucking sunset. I don't know. So we're deviating them off character to then round back, but that's ultimately the audience going like, "Fuck yeah, way, they're hunters again," and we get that moment, which should be quite cool. I think they should make these movies. These are good ideas. I think, to be fair, like years ago, I think maybe the special effects technology, I think maybe they would have struggled to do a full movie with a very, I mean, if you have to show the Predator homeworld, that's a big effect.
So that's a lot of animatronics.
Whereas, like nowadays, I think with, I would want to have it still guys in suits, animatronic faces for the most part, but for background stuff, nowadays, I think you could do this movie by comparison relatively easily by modern standards. It's not the most...
You need an army of special effects people, but yes.
But I think
it takes 10,000 animators. But
I think, I would think
they could be had
for the budget that like they did sort of the two fucking shit Prometheus movies. I think you could get close to this.
You could probably,
Like it depends. It depends how you use the
money.
How you use the technology. I mean, I'm thinking that like, God, could you do like a Colosseum? How would that look? But Gladiator did it. It was a CG Colosseum, and that was like in 2000.
It's not a Colosseum. It's an alien.
You could get creative at how you could show it.
It's your pyramid Colosseum,
and it's all like in darkness. So we can do it on the cheap, or whatever. I get, what I mean. But like, I'm trying to figure.
There's no tension. You can put it in daylight. Let us see the creatures. I want to see the creatures. I want to see the architecture. That's.
I mean, the fall down for this is basically that like it's a great idea, but would be astronomically expensive to do. So I'm now trying to go like, is there a way you could talk Fox? Yeah, but we can do it for like no money. Is there a way you could
give us the money?
Just give some money. Yeah.
Commit.
It would work. I think the Uprising idea one definitely works. I'm not so sure about the one after that, but I think it's definitely, if you had to do a sequel to it, that's where you would go.
You don't have to. Yeah, the one after, like I say, the Uprising one sets up the fact that Predators are not all over space like they seem to be. I think so. So that's the one you sort of narratively need to make the franchise hold together.
It's round it back to the very beginning of the conversation. The first Predator is not as strong a movie as we discussed as people think it is, and therefore I actually think less influence from that film on the franchise as a whole is a positive. I think going bigger and expanding and changing the background as opposed to just going like, just do Soldiers of the Jungle because that's what we liked the first time.
But it's funny that we talk about lots of modern sequels and reboots just doing the same thing again, but it's like, that's actually, we've been doing it for years. or even old films had dodgy retreading tendencies, and it's like just don't retread, extrapolate
logically,
pull it,
expand.
Yeah, what, like, given this direction, where would it go next from here, and then see where that takes you.
I mean, at the moment, to sort of talk about it more realistically, I mean, I think the Alien franchise is absolutely fucked now.
Oh, yeah.
I think that
Prometheus killed it. Dead.
There was rumours of an Alien 5, which was Neil Blomkamp, I think was the guy who did District 9, who's an amazing director, really talented guy. The concept art for that looked fucking fantastic.
The rumours were he was going to discount Alien 3 from what I heard.
It was basically it was going to be a direct sequel to Alien 2. The new Halloween movie did the same thing. It just was like, no, nothing ever happened after the first one. It's a direct sequel to the first one.
I think this is something the Godzilla franchise has already done.
Yeah, I know.
It's like 1985, The Return of Godzilla was a straight sequel to the 1950 whatever original.
Yeah.
And then the Millennium Godzilla films, most of them are just the only other continuous one is the original. So basically, all franchises need to pay more attention to Godzilla.
Yes, and learn from this.
And learn from the fact that they've, mastered the ability to create a franchise without the pressure to follow every film.
But the point I just want to make here is just that there was rumours of Alien 5. I think they could have brought it back. I think Predator itself, could have been salvaged, as we're discussing, because up until Prometheus, all what we were discussing is totally viable. This could all have happened. Ridley Scott just murdered the whole fucking thing. So what I'm trying to get to now is the only way I think that we would ever get to the sort of the happiness of the movies we're discussing would unfortunately be to reboot both, and you'd have to start again.
If you're gonna reboot both, then just do something else, because I would like in a world of fucking reboots, I would rather people just did something new.